Easy never wore anything but pants or jeans and did everything he could to hide his limp, which was usually only a problem toward the end of a long day when his muscles could take no more. He couldn't get underneath the cars in the garage quite as easily as the others, but he still did it. He was determined to pull his own weight on the job. As he sat on the toilet once more and dried himself off with a towel, he was surprised to notice his hands were shaking just a bit. 3 years was a long time to go without. Brenda was perfect, though, with long brown hair and a great ass. She was cute and flirty without being too obvious. She was exactly the type of girl he'd thought he'd be married to by now. Without the bomb, he'd have been an army officer with a beautiful wife, adorable kids, and a house with a yard that didn't take him 4 fucking hours to mow because he kept slipping in the wet grass. He couldn't have the uniform. He'd long since given up on that. He could, however, have the wife and kids. He'd only been hanging out with Brenda at Maria's bar for a few weeks now, far too early to be thinking about family life. Right now, he just had to concentrate on getting the fucking right. It could work, though. It would work. He reattached the leg and pulled on a fresh pair of blue jeans from the bottom dresser drawer. He pulled a tight gray t-shirt over his head and his large biceps stretched the fabric. He was probably overcompensating with the wardrobe, but he didn't want to think about that too hard. As he reached for his cell on top of his dresser, his hand passed over a tiny silver box. He smirked at it as he picked up the phone and dialed. It had been a long time since he'd even glanced at that box. In fact, he might throw that box away. Brenda answered on the 3rd ring, giggling into the phone. He couldn't help but smile. "Hey," she greeted him in a sing-song voice. "Hey," he replied, picking up his keys and pocketing them. He had the truck, but she'd probably rather take his bike. So far, he hadn't taken anyone for a ride, but he figured if it was going to be a night of firsts, he could just add that to the list. "You gonna meet me tonight?" More giggling. "Of course," she replied, and that had him smiling all over again. He couldn't help that he was born with an angel's looks and a devil's grin. He may have lost a lot of things, but he'd never lost his ability to charm women's panties off. "You gonna have breakfast with me, too?" he drawled and closed the dresser drawer. Brenda gasped and he chuckled to himself. "God," she breathed into the phone. "Is that a yes?" he prompted, checking his hair in the mirror hanging on the back of the bathroom door. He kept it short, a remnant from his army days. It looked fairly dry. "God, yes!" "See you tonight, baby," Easy told her. "Bye." He caught sight of his shirt in the mirror, looking slightly disheveled on one side. He tugged at it to straighten it. Over his phone he heard a clatter and then, "Was that him?" "Oh, it was totally him," Brenda told either roommate 1 or roommate 2. Easy didn't actually remember their names. Brenda was the most attractive of the 3, and he'd been monopolizing her since the first night he'd spotted her at the bar. "Yeah, and?" Nameless roommate asked. Easy cleared his throat and opened his mouth. Brenda clearly thought her phone was disconnected. He was about to call out to get her attention when another voice, roommate 2, he guessed, said, "The cop or the other one?" Caleb had spent a fair bit of time schmoozing the trio of women as well, though that would never go anywhere. Caleb had a steady thing in Sioux Falls. He wasn't above the occasional flirting on a Friday or Saturday night, but it always ended there. "The other one," Brenda replied. "He wants to get breakfast." Roommate 1, or was it 2, squealed and then devolved into a fit of laughter. "You gonna hop into bed with him?" Easy closed his mouth. "Anna!" Brenda scolded, but to his chagrin she laughed too. "No," said roommate 2. "She's gonna play pirates and draw him a treasure map to her booty." "Stop!" Brenda cried, laughing hard. Easy's jaw twitched. "He's got the peg leg," roommate 1 declared. "All he needs is an eye patch." Easy quietly hit the end call button on his phone and stared at it for a moment. It didn't matter, he told himself. It wasn't like Brenda was the one. It wasn't like she was anything at all. He slid the phone into his pocket, but couldn't manage to do any more than that. His anger slowly boiled over into rage as he looked at himself in the mirror across the room. He looked fine. Fine, goddammit, but he didn't feel fine. He had never felt fine since the day he woke up in a hospital bed 2 years ago, missing so much more than just his lower right leg. In fact, he might never feel fine again. That thought scared him so badly that, without thinking, he suddenly reached out to the dresser.